Welcome back to the last week of our Succession podcast, where we are talking about the season 3 finale today, All the Bells Say.
I have not stopped thinking about this episode since it aired, I will say.
Yeah, this was a really amazing episode. It felt like all the threads of the season all came together at the end, and it made me cry.
Same.
I think this and the number one boy scene is the only, two scenes that make me actually cry in Succession, but yeah. There's something about Kendall crying. I'm just a sympathetic crier, so it gets to me.
That's very empathic of you. I think I also admitted to crying last episode, which I feel like makes me look like I cry like TV and movies a lot, but I really don't. It's just Succession has a way of getting to me.
Succession. It's emotional. So right off the bat in this episode, we get confirmation on what happened to Kendall at the end of episode 8. And I was glad to see this address, and I was also, I think a little bit surprised at the direction it went, and that it was basically confirmed to have been sort of a suicide attempt, maybe just not really caring about what happened to him. If you listened to us last week, you know that we were sure that he wasn't dead, but we weren't exactly sure that it was even a close call, but it was in fact a close call.
We were mostly right. I think we can say that.
Yeah, I think so. We're still right, though.
Yeah, that's my read as well, that it's kind of, he wasn't consciously trying to kill himself, but he didn't care what happened to him and wanted that on some level. Jesse did say in an interview in Variety that he did not expect the meltdown that happened over Kendall potentially being dead. I know he tries not to read, fan theories and stuff too much, but apparently he's very adamant that he thought we would not freak out over this.
That's so funny. He's like, no one really cares about Kendall that much, right?
We open the episode with Logan reading Goodbye Mog to Iverson, which is about a family that loses their pet Mog. And gets a new kitten. So, very interesting choice for Logan to read to his grandson, who almost just lost his dad.
Yeah, that was kind of funny. I was like, I have to know what book this is and if there's any significance. And it's a book that helps children process grief, so that's interesting.
Yeah, they were like, Dad's been going through a hard time lately. Let me make sure to bring this on our trip to Italy.
And the rest of the Roys are playing Monopoly, which is really fun to see. There was one line before where Roman said that Connor only knows about jail from Monopoly, which is in season 2, and picturing these billionaires sitting around playing Monopoly is just a very funny image, and I'm so glad that we got that at the beginning of this episode. It was really funny, and Tom's joke about the get out of jail free card too was perfect.
Yes, I remember we had a whole discussion before about the Monopoly line and whether this family would have actually played Monopoly as kids. I think we came to the conclusion Logan never participated in Monopoly. It's just a thing that the others maybe got into.
Looking at the rest of the episode and where it goes, we get the children of the family basically playing this game about, amassing wealth and trying to crush each other, basically the game that brings out your worst capitalistic impulses. And it's kind of funny with the direction the rest of the episode goes, that they're kind of stuck in this place where they sort of feel like children playing a game at the end, and it's they get this big slap with a reality at the end that they thought they were moving their little Monopoly pieces around the board, and then Logan just flipped the table basically.
Logan was a part of the game all along, actually.
He was. He won the game, because he wins. Well, anyway, then Kendall shows up, and I thought it was interesting the way that he was still, sort of half-heartedly trying to perform the version of himself that he's been all season, basically saying that he's going to talk to new lawyers, new lawyers, and that he might have something lined up with Vanity Fair, and it's a big deal, and he might have to get going. But you could tell he was just kind of going through the motions at this point. It was pretty sad to watch.
Very half-hearted, and I love that he felt post kind of suicide attempt, near-death experience, that he had to impress his family by showing, look, I'm still trying to do something here. I'm not pathetic, and it just had the opposite effect.
When he leaves, even Comfrey says, like, we have been talking to Vanity Fair, but it's mostly us calling them.
Yeah, and even when he's talking to them, Comfrey is like looking away a little, and you can tell from her reactions that this is not the reality.
Let's do Burn of the Week.
That's not a good retort. Don't fucking laugh at that.
So my burn of the week is in the scene when Connor, sort of gleefully, tells Shiv and Roman that Logan might be trying to increase his, fertility power or something like that. And he says, I guess he really doesn't like you guys. This is something that Connor kind of went through, was he is the eldest son. He is the eldest son of their father. And he had to probably, as a teenager, so like grown up enough to kind of know what was happening, he had to watch Logan just like try again and have some new kids. So I think there's a part of him that maybe is feeling a little satisfied that it might also be happening to the Golden children.
I love that choice. This is like the best revenge he could have possibly gotten.
I know, he seems so like weirdly happy about it. It's funny.
So my burn of the week comes from Shiv. I have no doubt, Peter, that you'll never be bored in the brief time that you're married. I think given that Caroline spent Shiv's wedding asking people to place bets on how long it would last, and in her toast made a joke about Shiv getting remarried, I love this for Shiv. It was completely fair.
So Logan and Roman go out to visit Mattson, and on the boat ride there, Logan kind of needles him more about his weird sex thing, which is just really humiliating, and Logan kind of makes a weird comment about Carrie. So I guess I was wrong when I said maybe they weren't fucking. Like, okay, so they definitely are. I was being too optimistic.
You just believe in people, and I love that about you.
Yeah. So I have to accept it now. I have to have that image in my mind.
We have also gone on the record as saying that we think Roman is bi, which I still agree with, and you can kind of read into some of the things Logan says here, like he tells Roman to straighten out, but I don't think he's really thinking about Roman necessarily being, like, gay or bi. I think to Logan, like, the fact that Roman is unable to fuck and is, like, seen as weak is, like, kind of the same. Like, he says in the scene, I don't want to know. It's just whatever it is, appear to be normal.
Whatever your thing is, just figure it out, which is kind of, like that was always his response to Kendall's addiction too, where he was just like, if you need to figure it out, just go and do that. I don't want to know what you're doing.
He can't even really call it an addiction. He's just like, your issues.
You just have some issues.
Yeah. My sons, they all have issues, so I need to have new ones.
Just replace them. It's fine. I like the line Mattson says that Mark, do you know Mark?
We don't love Mark.
we don't love Mark. Told him this thing about how they had considered apparently in ancient Rome to have the slaves all kind of wear the same outfit. I don't know, I said outfit. That's like a weirdly cute word for it. Uniform, I don't know.
Matching schoolgirl uniforms.
Matching little outfits. But then they did not do that because they knew that if they saw like how many of them there were, they would rise up and kill their masters. And I just think there's something sort of chilling about how they are obviously very aware that they are the masters in this situation, which I think is a vibe you get when you kind of hear things that billionaires kind of say about like, going to space or like making their climate change bunkers, that they are kind of aware of the precarious like situation that they're in, and they're not interested in like making it better. They just kind of want to escape it or like maintain their own position in it.
It was a really good line, just casually comparing yourself to an owner of slaves.
Right.
And I think it was very relevant to this episode. There are more kids than there are Logans, and they realized that.
Yes, that was definitely part of it too, was that kind of realization that the kids had, that they had a majority vote. They could take them down.
Yeah, they are the majority. They should wear matching outfits, actually.
They should. It'd be really cute.
Yeah. So Roman in this scene, I mean, they do a lot with the blocking of Roman in this scene. He's like physically trailing behind them. He's seated separately. They're on a couch together. And like they're not even speaking to him really during this scene. I think Logan 100% brought Roman along to kind of show, oh, you think this guy's your friend? He's actually only going to want to talk to me.
He has been trying to keep Roman on his side too, so kind of throwing a bone to him a little bit and being like, you'll be involved in some capacity, like he tried to convince him later, but yeah, not looking good for Rome, and I think he was kind of humiliated later to have to admit that, like, yeah, it didn't really go that great. I should have said that earlier, but
yeah.
I was just dismissed like a child, like, okay,
Like
just
a
go.
child, like they exchange a look like, okay, can we get rid of him so the adults can talk?
I also like that Logan sort of made a point about the decline of America, which felt very similar to what Kendall said in the second episode of the season. Some awareness on Logan's part that the company is in trouble, it is in decline, they need to do something.
Yeah, Kendall wasn't wrong in everything that he said. I mean, even the Gojo thing at all was something that Kendall brought up at the beginning of the season. Like, it's really sad, actually, that everything that he wanted for the company is what's ending up happening. He just can't be a part of it.
Yep. He tends to have, like, not bad ideas. I mean...
His execution is the problem.
Yeah, I think the execution needs some work, but he's not terrible at a pitch. At the end of the scene, you can really tell that Logan is considering it.
He didn't tell him to fuck off. I think for Logan, that's basically a yes. And the fact that they dismissed Roman really sealed the deal.
And I just listened to the interview that The Ringer did with Jesse Armstrong, and I really loved, like, something he said there, a quote that's like, you know, revolution is impossible until it's inevitable, and relating that, like, sentiment to, we never thought that Logan would actually sell the company. Like, we always thought that was impossible, and so did the kids, but all of a sudden it just kind of falls into place, and it's like, well, of course, that is what he's going to do in this situation.
That is something I have heard people discuss, since just a few episodes ago there was a whole thing with Stewie and Sandy, and Logan was refusing to sell, but it wasn't actually that he had to at that point.
Well, he wasn't going to sell to Sandy. I mean, come on. I mean, there is a personal element to it.
He can be a little petty as a treat.
As much as he can say that he wants to make the best deal at any given time, it's like...
Oh, no.
There is a personal element, and I think he actually came to respect, like, Mattson in this scene, and that is part of it. And Mattson was, you know, deferential to him and said, you're a legend, and I think that he kind of knew how to play that card on him.
100%. Mattson is going to have a great next season, I think. He played Logan really well, but he's going to have the power.
I've liked the character, too. He kind of grew on me. His first appearance in, like, Too Much Birthday, I was like, I don't really know what to make of this guy, but I think I've liked him, so I hope that he does come back in some way.
Yeah, I think his energy is just very fun for the other characters to bounce off of, because he's just so understated.
It's very different than a lot of the other characters, so it just feels like kind of a new flavor. Let's do location.
Venice, St. Bart's, the Maldives. Has she heard of these locations? She must be aware of them.
So, Caroline's wedding was filmed at the Villa Settenale. I had noticed during the episode that it seemed very hot. I don't think this is something you can always notice with the show, but here I was like, it looks like it's genuinely boiling there. And when I was looking up filming information for this episode, I did see that when they were filming the wedding toast, according to Vulture, it was 95 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And then at the end of the episode, when they all kind of reconvened with Logan, that was filmed at Arjano, which is in a separate town from where Caroline's wedding was filmed. It's over an hour drive, so they left Logan and Tom plenty of time to scheme against them.
Yeah, that makes sense, because you could kind of tell when they took off, the sun was still out, and it had set by the time they got there, so they made it clear that there was, like, sufficient time for scheming. And Tom had to get over there, too. I guess he probably left at the same time in a separate car.
Yeah, how did he get there so fast?
He left, like, 3 minutes later.
He was just in a car, like, behind them, and they never noticed.
They just, like, turned the headlights off to drive slowly. Don't catch up to them. Tom's on some spy shit.
I love that for him.
So the siblings throw an intervention for Kendall, and I like the way that Connor puts it. He says, like, you either consciously or subconsciously tried to kill yourself. So I think that they are, like, hitting on something that's very true, is that, like, this may not have been, like, super purposeful, but you clearly don't really care what happens to yourself anymore. And I also like that Shiv brings up that he's like not only addicted to drugs and alcohol, but also relationships and sex and the business and the family drama. Because I think you can really see that with Kendall, is that when he's not doing drugs all the time, he's like falling in with some girl that he just met and flying her out to Dundee, or like he just kind of gets in these like spirals like that. So I thought that was a good read.
They definitely understand his issues, and I was particularly glad to see Connor getting to have a moment of clearly getting the situation. They don't know what to do with it at all, and this intervention to me just got funnier as the episode went on, because they called him out for being addicted to killing Dad and the company and everything, and when he tries to say later, I'm done with this shit, I don't want a part of it, they're like, no, we need you, come on.
You need to stop trying to kill Dad. Okay, Kendall, can you kill Dad with us?
Just for a day, just take a break. It's just microdose on killing Dad.
just a little bit. A little won't hurt.
Just a tip, but for killing Dad.
You know, he can stop anytime he wants. It's fine. He'll stop tomorrow. This is the last attempted coup against his father.
Yeah,
Tonight.
Just one last hurrah with your siblings, and then tomorrow you have to stop this dude.
There wasn't a lot of genuine emotional connection in this scene. I mean, I think like the moment between Kendall and Connor at the end, that felt like a real kind of moment, but then clearly we got the actual moment later on.
I think Connor was being like the most honest in this scene by yelling at Kendall. I think that's what everyone wanted to do, but instead they're like, we're worried about you. You have to stop doing this. I don't want you to die, I guess.
It was pretty bold of Kendall to say, like, do you have any idea how it feels to be the eldest son and then be promised something, when Connor is literally sitting right there? Like, do you have any self-awareness?
I know the pan the camera did to Connor there was just fantastic.
Great. I was so glad that he snapped. He deserved to snap.
He deserved to snap, and I think they built it up really well throughout the season with all the, backstory about how much he really was there for the kids, but they don't acknowledge him at all. They treat him like this weird cousin. He
had been promised that role and groomed in a way that the others had not been, but it's like, Shiv was also promised it and it was taken away. Like, a lot of them can relate, maybe just not on that same level.
Yeah, Shiv was promised it one day while Ken had months of corporate strategy, so I get what he means. The eldest son thing just killed the sympathy card he had here.
Yeah.
And when Connor snaps at him, honestly, it's not that bad. He says one insulting thing to Kendall, and Kendall responds, "I thought you loved me," which just shows Kendall's black and white thinking. It's like, this person thinks one negative thing about me. Okay, they're toxic and they hate me.
Yeah, all he said was that Kendall is selfish, which yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean he doesn't love you, Kendall. You're not a perfect person. I think you can accept that. Let's do Let Them Eat Cake.
Let us eat cake.
My Let Them Eat Cake moment was when Roman asked, "How was the Monopoly? Did you get to pay some income tax for the novelty value?"
I love that.
There were a lot of pretty self-aware jokes about about the Monopoly game, when Tom said "Oh, another get out of jail free card," but I liked this one because they're we've never paid income tax in our lives. All of our money is from our shares. My
Let Them Eat Cake moment kind of plays out through the episode. So when they get to Caroline's wedding, there's some discussion about the Wi-Fi situation. They say, rural Tuscany, real business hub. But what we see throughout the rest of the episode is that they have a very easy time operating from rural Tuscany.
Yeah.
They are running all over the place, and the setup we see at the end of the episode with everyone on their laptops and phones at the same time, I was like, you guys have an amazing Wi-Fi situation, clearly. So many people just kind of swarmed on that location, and they made it work. So in the scene between Connor and Willa, she basically agrees to marry him because she feels bad for him. 100%. But it was kind of cute. The reaction to it, even though how bad can it be, is one of the most unromantic things you can say to accept a proposal. It's as unromantic as the proposal itself. Yeah. And I will say, I think at this point, maybe Will and Connor are the healthiest relationship on the show. They're at least honest with each other. That's true. They're I don't know if this is really a good relationship for me, but okay, whatever. Right. She's not pretending that this is her top choice. She's just why not? We'll have fun, right? So in a way,
they are kind of meeting each other's needs, and they're nice to each other, and they talk about their problems.
Yeah, that's pretty big for this show. Who else can say that?
Now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I actually think that they're fine. And like Willa, I'm sure if she could get the money and the lifestyle without being with Connor, I'm sure she would. But I mean, it's like a decision that she made, so I guess that's fine.
Yeah. And she's pretty upfront about it and does seem to have some genuine fondness for him.
Yeah, I think she definitely
you're a
does.
nice
Otherwise,
man.
she wouldn't have like agreed just because she felt bad for him.
Oh no.
She does care about him.
She does care about him, though. We saw even just her face as she was getting into the car. She was already starting to regret it a bit.
That was a pretty funny thread, like there and throughout the rest of the episode, like when she's crying at the wedding and that shot of her just like downing wine at the reception. Like she's like, oh God, what have I done? So Caroline and Peter get married, and as we kind of touched on, Shiv's speech was a lot like the speech that Caroline gave at her wedding, and I also love the kind of subtle curse she put upon them, saying, I hope your marriage is as happy and fulfilling as mine. And Tom, I think, kind of clocked that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Looked up at her, was like, uh-huh.
It was a great moment.
And then get the reveal that Logan is maybe trying to produce another offspring, which is wild. He's kind of gone full, like, Mad King, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I was expecting something from, like, green smoothie that Carrie was bringing him, but not this. Did not even cross my mind.
I also thought it was interesting, the brief exchange between Marcia and Carrie, because I find it impossible to believe that Marcia doesn't know. Everyone knows. But she was very pleasant and cordial to her, and I think at this point she's probably, like, just, taking a step back from that relationship and is not as involved with Logan anymore.
Yeah, I think she's basically just here to collect her money for continuing to stay with Logan.
It's also funny that they flew out, he and my boss, to Italy to deliver like one line and just like wear a hat.
Yeah, though I did read that there was a scene between Marcia and Shiv that got deleted.
Oh, okay. I think her and like Justine Loop, who plays Willa, have like the best deal. I'm always so jealous of that actress because, she doesn't have a lot of scenes. She doesn't have very intense scenes. They're more, comedic, kind of filler scenes. And she has gotten to go on every location shoot. The yacht, the wedding in Italy, the wedding in England. She got to go to Virginia even.
Real life Willa barely doing anything but like living off of their success.
Like it is a good deal for her. So that is who we all would want to be. The Roman and Greg scene, I think it's funny how they only interact like once per season, and Greg will just tell Roman how much everyone hates him and thinks he's a weirdo and a bad person. Like on the yacht when he was like, you're widely known as a bad person. And then here he's like, everyone knows you're a sexual pervert.
They're both such, I think, disliked characters by like the people around them, and I think there's not much you can get out of their relationship, so it works to just do once per season a little comedic relief.
Yeah, and they both just like seem to actually hate each other. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
There's no love there.
Yeah, there are a lot of characters on this show who pretend not to hate each other, but they're just like, oh, fuck you.
Yeah, they're just very, very open about just kind of their disdain for each other. And also just the height difference is always fantastic to see them.
Especially knowing that Kieran auditioned for Greg makes it even funnier, I think.
I could not picture that. That is wild to me.
Height is critical to Greg's character.
It works so well. I also just want to shout out "lackey slack" was probably one of my favorite phrases from this episode. Greg says that he's on the lackey slack, which is just such a funny idea that all of the Gregs from all these other companies like have a Slack together. I adore that.
I loved that, and I particularly loved that Jerry apparently didn't ask any questions about Greg, like, getting calls and stuff. She just accepted that Greg would be somehow in on this.
Yeah, sure. Let's do number one boy.
You're my boy. You're my number one boy.
So, my number one boy for this episode was very easy. It was Roman.
Oh, good.
I do love him.
Yeah.
This was a tough episode for him. He spent a good portion of it trying to protect his dad, is how I interpret it. And Roman definitely has the most trouble fighting back against Logan of the siblings throughout the show. But by the end of the episode, he became the only Roy to be offered kind of a high-level position at Waystar and say, I'm not sure I really believe you. I'm gonna kind of keep my options open and stick with these other guys. Just, Roman, you may have been dumped by both your parents and your other mommy in this episode, but I will take your love. As we see with him and Kendall in this episode, it's a beautiful thing to be loved by Roman.
Yeah. Aw. I love him so much. My number one boy this week, I have to just cheat because it's the last week, so mine is a 3-way tie between the Royce siblings. I'm allowed to cheat. I can do whatever I want, okay? I make the rules.
Can I cheat?
No. You already did your
Damn.
answer. Okay, so, because I've already done Shiv, I've already done Roman twice, I've already done Kendall twice, so I'm just going to say all 3 of them, because that scene that we're going to talk about real soon is just like one of the best things I've seen. And I immediately after this episode made a photo of the 3 of them, my lock screen on my phone, so it's just real bad for me. I love the Roy siblings. They're my long lost family. They love each other and they're together, but it's too late. Like, they finally found their way together after 3 seasons of this show. They've never really been on the same page like this. They finally got together. It was just a bit too late, but they were just comforting each other in their defeat. So at least they have each other. I can't even be that crushed by the ending because I'm just happy that they have each other. So the really the centerpiece scene of this episode is the really long scene between Kendall, Shiv, and Roman when Shiv pulls him out of the wedding to go talk about this deal. And I just think every beat of this worked so well to kind of have these 2 threads kind of going at once where it becomes more personal and then there's things about business. And I just thought the way that it sort of yo-yoed between those 2 things, you could really feel where they all were emotionally at any given point. It was just really well done.
Yeah, you've mentioned before how there's really no separation of the personal and the business in this show.
Yeah.
You can see that here. This was mentioned on the official podcast and also in a Twitter thread from Michael Schulman, which is that Jeremy tried doing the scene on a stone pillar. Mm-hmm. Then after 9 takes, just sat down on the ground and decided to try it that way instead.
Yeah.
Which is the only way I can imagine the scene. There's something very posed about, I think, delivering a speech like this on a pillar, but the vulnerability that he's so done that he's just gonna sit on the dirty ground.
Yeah, just to be so dejected that you just sit on the ground, and the way that the sort of white clay rubbed off onto his pants, and the moment when Roman fully sat down beside him and got it onto his own pants at kind of the moment when they became most vulnerable and real with each other. I just thought it was used to great effect. And I just want to say a little bit more about the acting decisions there, because Michael Schulman was the one who wrote the New Yorker profile for Jeremy Strong that got way too much attention this week. And I don't want to run it into the ground because I think everybody's been talking about it, but I will say that I think where I stand on it now is that to what extent is it okay to inconvenience the other people on a set to give a performance that you feel really happy about? How much trouble do you make for everyone else, asking for custom props and doing these things that he is reported to have done or has openly said, yes, I will do that. I will send emails to Jesse Armstrong and ask him about the script and get rewrites basically written because I said I don't feel like this is right. And this is a great example of that, because they did 9 takes of this really long scene and then they couldn't use any of it because then he decided to sit on the ground, which, means that the rest of the takes, continuity was broken. So it's all of that work now, they can't use it. But I don't think anyone would say that he shouldn't have done that. It just made the scene so perfect that I think you just have to say sometimes it is okay to inconvenience your coworkers to do the best work that you can do. And there's definitely a line, but I think you can look at the work that he does and be it was worth it. It was worth it. And I think the last thing I want to say is that a lot of the things that the other people that he works with, so Brian Cox and Kieran Culkin, were probably the 2 quotes that people thought were maybe most critical of Jeremy. But even those, I don't think they were like that bad. Like people were really kind of blowing them out of proportion and saying like, you wouldn't say this if you expected to work with someone again. And I'm like, have you ever had a job with coworkers? Because I don't work on a movie set, but I've had a lot of conversations like with my coworkers about like the way that we work might not always mesh. And it's okay to just be a grown up and be like, you know, there is some tension here sometimes, and we work in different ways, but how can we figure out to like gel that, because we have a job to do. And so I just think it was like a lot of fuss over, you know, nothing that new. Also in that profile, if you've read other Jeremy Strong interviews, it's like, yeah, we knew this.
Yeah, it's the same as every other Jeremy profile. And I think people do often forget that celebrities are just doing a job. Like, it is a workplace when they're on set, and they don't always like each other or get along.
Yeah, and that's not like a big problem.
No, it doesn't mean you need to cancel someone because one of their coworkers
doesn't like
had
them.
a hard day with them.
Imagine everybody being like, I don't think your coworkers like you. You must be a shitty person.
And, I mean, from what I've read in interviews, like, all of them seem to say the scene they felt was not working until Jeremy did this.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for someone that will work that hard and not be afraid to inconvenience other people, to be like, I need to do the best performance I can do, even if it means maybe creating some friction on set. I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, obviously there are limits. You can push that line a little bit, and I don't think it's a huge deal.
So we had a bit of a conversation last episode about how you can't let go of the idea of being a good person. Like, that's basically just giving up on life entirely. And that is what Kendall does in this scene.
I was really glad that he went there, because I think it was, you know, maybe something he needed to express is like, I'm a bad guy. And I loved Roman just being, what? No, you're fine.
Fine.
And of course, then he confessed. He told his siblings what happened with the waiter. And there was so much buildup on this front all season, a lot of references to it. It felt like something like this had to be coming. And I'm really glad that we got a quieter, more like personal scene rather than like a press conference or, you know, the podcast thing or, you know, something like that. This just felt so right. And it really like pulled Kendall in the direction that he needed to go to like feel like there's more we can get from him as a character too. Like, I think he had kind of reached a point where like, in order to move forward, he had to sort of, you know, transform in some way.
I gasped when this happened. I thought there was maybe a point in the show where maybe he'd tell like one of his siblings. I was hoping for that, but him getting to tell both and getting like the validation that we don't think you're a bad person. Like, I will just say I was crying during this scene.
This scene really just like chokes me up. Even before he confesses, when he's saying that he thought he saw the way out for all of them and he could see the way markers. Yeah. It's just so emotional. And he tried all of this and he failed. And, you know, it was for him, but it was for his siblings. Like, they've all been in this, you know, relationship with their dad that has kind of ruined them. And he was like trying to get them out of it, really. You know, trying to get himself out, but now it's like they can kind of continue that move that he made at the end of season 2, but try and bring the rest of them along too.
Yeah, this was his actual honesty moment. Like, this is the most honest he's been all season. The thing I said before that I love most about Kendall is just how hard he's trying all the time.
Yeah.
And this is him admitting it, that he was just trying to do this thing for himself and for his siblings.
And I liked how it seemed to be kind of spurred on by when he saw like the waitstaff like bringing the trash out. You could tell he was kind of glancing over at them. They're at another wedding. He's, you know, thinking about these people that are always sort of on the periphery of these scenes.
Yeah, that was a very good detail. And I find it interesting the way he always talks about the waiter. He says here, I killed a kid. In the season 2 finale, he said it's good to pay for the boy. Like, he's always talking about him like he was a minor. I'm guessing when he said that in this scene, that's what they were picturing when he said, I killed a kid.
Right. Yeah, it does seem like you're talking about like an 8-year-old and not like a 21, 22-year-old, whatever.
Roman really makes this scene, I think.
Yeah.
Kendall stopped laughing and he fell, but Roman made him laugh again.
Yeah.
And he's back.
Yeah, Roman's reaction was just So perfect. Exactly how I thought he would react if this ever came out. Just making jokes about it. And also just kind of the way he rationalizes it and is like, well, it sounds like he killed him because he grabbed at the steering wheel and the road and the water killed him. And you tried to go back in and save him. And I would have been out of there like a tabby out of a bath, which is such a funny line. And on one hand, it is like kind of terrible. They are kind of doing like the NRPI thing a little bit, especially when he then goes into how long it took him to get a drink at the wedding and how he's the real victim there. But I think it's clearly a joke.
It's in jest.
I think it's in jest, and it's a little bit terrible. But like, I don't think it would have been helpful to sit there and be like, yeah, Kendall, like you ended someone's life. That's terrible. Like he worked through a lot of that, and I think. I don't know. It would be kind of funny if the conclusion to this arc was just like, it wasn't a big deal. It very well may like come up again. That's totally possible. But I feel like emotionally, this does feel like a pretty good conclusion to kind of unburden himself of that and like be able to maybe stop beating himself up a little bit. Like, sometimes I'm like ready to just be like, yeah, it was fine. It wasn't a big deal.
I mean, okay, first off, the guy stayed in the water even though he survived the crash. So technically that is a suicide.
I mean, yeah, why didn't he just swim out himself? Like, help yourself, like dude. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Why should I have to save you?
That's what Kendall did. Like, would we be blaming the waiter if Kendall stayed in the water and died?
Oh god, that's hilarious.
More seriously, this was 100% what Kendall needed in this moment. It felt like a very classic sibling thing to make light of it in this way. And I will say seriously, it is a bad thing that he did, but I don't think it's what Logan told him, like, you are just defined by this for the rest of your life. It's unforgivable. Like, I don't think that's even a useful way to think about a bad thing that you've done. Like, you need to be able to move forward and think that you're capable of moving past this.
Yeah. And, I mean, you know, clearly the thing that's worse is that they covered it up and that the kid was maybe a little bit blamed for it then because they thought that he was alone and driving high, so it was his own fault. So there's like a little bit of maybe like additional pain that's been put on the family because of that. But it's also like, what good would it really do at this point for him to be like, it was me, like a year later? Yeah. I don't know, not to justify manslaughter in front of however many people are listening to this, but I don't know. I don't know what Kendall should do at this point. The line that really broke me is when he just says, it's fucking lonely, because that's really so true. He's been in this almost completely alone the entire time, and I think it can be helpful to actually say those things out loud and to kind of get a bit of a reality check, I think, from his siblings of saying like, well, yeah, let's think about this. Like, yeah, it was a mistake, but, you know, you're not the only one to blame here.
Yeah, it's very easy to kind of dramatize things in your own head when you're alone with it like that.
Yeah.
And make it out to be worse than it was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was bad.
It was bad.
We
know it was bad at this point.
We know it's bad. Please don't yell at us.
Yeah, I'm kind of over being like Kendall's. Well, I think that's like the way people talk about it too. Like there was this really hilarious post on Twitter that was like, wait, from the way you guys like were talking about it, I thought Kendall like purposefully ran over a child in a car. So I do think like obviously there are degrees to it, and it is like it was a cowardly thing to run away, and it showed like a side of himself that I think is really like uncomfortable, but I think something also that's just really real, like a really real kind of reaction to just be like, I'm going to pretend that didn't happen.
I think that is what makes Succession so compelling. As much as people talk about, oh, these characters are unlikable and terrible and unrelatable, the reason I think that it is so compelling to people is because they are actually very relatable and have these very human moments.
Yeah, I think it's a very human and relatable urge to be like, I have a chance to just kind of flee the scene. The kids are like, I can't help him. By the time emergency services get here, he's going to be dead anyway. You know, like, I guess I'm just going to bolt And the difference is that he has the power and the influence within his family to actually get away with it. That there aren't going to be consequences for leaving his key card on the scene and that kind of sloppy shit. I would love Roman to roast him for that at some point. Like, you left your key card there? Like, slap him. Like, that was your real mistake there, Kendall. And it is interesting, like, they don't know or they haven't, put together the dots. Maybe that is why he pulled out of the deal. Maybe that's something that will kind of happen between seasons, that they'll kind of realize all the implications of that.
I'm sure Shiv is like starting to think about that, but I'm not sure Roman was really like, because Shiv was just very fixated on that shift and what is going on with you and Dad, and now she knows.
Yeah, so I hope that they can kind of, continue to talk about it, or in the next season we might just get a reference that they have talked about it a little bit more, and I would be happy with that, because I do think they need to realize like that's why he did everything he's been doing for the past year, like
yeah.
He's been acting very like erratically, and now they have the key to understand it. So I love when it kind of turns again and Shiv has to bring back the business news, and I love that kind of spurs Kendall to just fully sob again. I just felt like there's this kind of interplay there where she's like, yeah, it's real, they're trying to sell, and he just breaks down, which just, there's so much going on there where it's just like,
yeah,
after everything he just told them, he still has to fucking deal with this bullshit.
And it's also kind of, when he like started crying, it's like everything is gonna make you cry.
Right, yeah, just like he's already in that like super heightened emotional state. Let's do best line.
Words are just, nothing. Complicated airflow.
My line of the episode, and I would say in many ways of the season, was when Roman said, "What have I got? I don't know. Fucking love?"
Yeah.
This line really just bore a hole in my brain, and it's been eating away at me ever since. It shows this belief that they all have, and Roman's the one who expresses it here, that love actually matters. And I won't call that naive, because it's not. Love does matter. It's probably the only thing that actually does matter. It's just that Logan is like sick and twisted, and they haven't fully accepted that yet. He thinks that saying I love you and you love me counts for anything, and it doesn't. It's just so heartbreaking as a last-ditch effort to persuade their father. There's so much desperation, and I feel like every ounce of it. And I think you can say that the kids are acting like entitled in this scene, but what are they acting entitled to? Their father caring about them? Like, aren't they entitled to that a little bit? Like, isn't that kind of the whole point of being a human and having relationships, is that you value some people more than others, and you give them special treatment? And that's the promise they've been made for their whole lives, is that Logan, because he's their father, is going to give this world to him, this world that he built, and they've been raised thinking that one day it will be theirs. And it's hard to let go of that. And it's and all of a sudden he's just like, no, make your own world. And I think it's not, I can't see it as being as much about the company as just this, that is always kind of a displacement for their relationship, and that they just want to feel valued, and this is the only way they've ever been taught to feel valued. So to have that just snatched away, it makes sense that he's pleading with his father here and just being like, but I love you, and why sell the company to some tech guy when I'm your son and I want this and you've told me to want this.
Yeah.
God.
I think it'd be easy to look at this scene and their behavior in this whole episode and be like, oh, they're being brats, they're being told to get jobs instead of nepotism jobs, and they're complaining. But that's not what's been happening. Logan told them this is the only valuable thing they could do with their lives, and that this was basically how they could earn his love, by proving themselves to be capable of this. And then he's just like, never mind. I don't want you guys here. That's shitty of you guys to try to get in on this.
They had the plan to push him out, or to stop him by force if they had to. They had that plan. But they did go in there and say at first, let us in, stop doing this. And he very purposefully tried to exclude them, because I think he knew that they would do this. So it's like for him to act like, oh, you guys come in here with, with your guns and like now you're talking about love is like kind of a cheap turn, I think. They tried to reason with him first and then they had to go to force, which is like, when has Logan not done that?
He wants them to kill him, but he's also gonna kill them if they try to do that.
Yep.
That's Logan. So, my best line this episode is kind of an exchange. Shiv goes, "How do we feel about killing Dad? Mixed feelings?" And Kendall goes, "Pass me the fucking shotgun."
Woo! I think I like put my hands above my head and went, woo, when that happened.
It's such a great exchange. This made me think of in kid shows when there's this villain who's been like dogging them all season and they just find him super annoying, but then in the finale they realize that they actually need the villain's like evil scheming skills. I love that trope, love seeing an HBO Succession, and maybe they should have just let Kendall bring a shotgun.
That's a great example. He's like, I've been ready for this. Like, I've been trying to do this. I asked you guys to do this with me at the beginning of the season. And if they had done it then, it would have worked.
It would have been different.
So
yeah,
that's kind of the heartbreak of it too, is like they had a shot that would have been harder to kill at the beginning of the season, and
all the bells say too late.
All the bells say too late. Exactly. So in the car on the way to go see Logan, they have to kind of, negotiate things a little bit more. And Roman is clearly the most like hesitant to go forward with this because of the relationship that he's had with his dad all season. And he thinks he has, sort of a good thing going. He's not quite as, maybe not as ambitious as like Shiv, where not getting the CEO is like a deal breaker for him. He's like, as long as I'm involved and my dad loves me, sure, I don't really care if you sell.
Yeah, exactly. Roman, I mean, he's the only one who's never really tried to kill their dad before. And I think he also, you can see this, he needs to be convinced that it's even possible for them to kill Logan. Because, like, Shiv and Kendall are already like, oh, obviously, we have a majority. But Roman needs to actually hear this. As always, he's like, Logan is Moby Dick. We can't actually kill him.
And honestly, he was kind of right in this one. He's never going to do it again, because he's like, that was the best chance we had.
We tried, guys.
And as always, they begin arguing a little bit about who will actually be in charge, because, splitting things equally between them, there's always someone on top. So Shiv calls Tom, which clearly was the mistake here, but, she did ask him to play a role by putting out this information on, like, ATN. So I guess that is the reason why she felt like she had to inform him, because she often does not inform him of these moves until they're sort of in process or until she needs advice or emotional support. But in this case, she did not keep him in the dark, and that was one of the mistakes that she made. One
thing I will say to be critical of Succession is she tends not to tell Tom things unless she absolutely has to, so I feel like they could have given her a stronger impetus here to tell Tom this. Even though I wouldn't have wanted to change, because it just made for one of the best things I've ever seen.
Yeah, like I can't really quibble over some of those details too much. I think she feels like, maybe she can trust him too, but yeah. And I think the scene between Tom and Greg then just like really blossoms when you watch it a second time and know what's coming, because I think you can see all of that in the performance with how like emotional Tom seems to be. You want to make a deal with the devil. Like some of the dialogue does have this kind of like dual purpose where, the first time I didn't really suspect anything. I didn't suspect anything until the very end when she said who told him, and right away I was like, oh, it was Tom. But during this scene, I didn't see it coming. So I think it worked both that on a first viewing, and then going back, there's more things, to kind of see in that scene.
Oh yeah, I totally assumed maybe next season we'll see some other moves from Tom. I think Tom knows at this point that Greg is a snake. He doesn't have much to lose by saying, hey Greg, wanna hitch yourself to my wagon? Like, he's not even giving him much information here. I think it's a smart move to keep Greg on his side, given how much power he has, and I think he thinks he can maybe control it a little bit if he's aware of who Greg it is and keeps him close.
one of the earliest issues where Tom realized that he couldn't trust Shiv wasn't even Shiv's fault. So in the episode Sad Sack Wasp Trap in season 1, somebody spills the beans to Jerry about the press conference that he's planning to do, and he suspects that it was Shiv, but it was actually Greg, and he still doesn't know that it was actually Greg. So I think it's interesting that he thinks he can trust Greg, and he obviously can't. But it was obviously smart of him to not give Greg too much information here. And I mean, I also think he's just genuinely fond of Greg wants to keep him around. And
their faces were really close to each other in this scene.
Yeah, this was like one of the flirtiest scenes I've seen in the entire show, honestly. And like the Neurosporus callback, when he said that initially, it did seem kind of like a weird reference and like a very specific reference, but the fact that it was called back to in this way as he makes a move to metaphorically kill his wife and like, you know, push her down the stairs, and he's asking Greg to kind of like be his partner at a wedding, and we know from the costume designer that she made their like wedding outfits be like a compliment to each other instead of Tom and Shiv having the complimentary outfits. Like that, like he really did kill Shiv and marry Greg in the end.
He did, and when he first said that, there was no reciprocation. It was just really uncomfortable. But here, like, Greg seems to be genuinely enjoying his presence, like a cute little reference between them.
Yeah, Greg was really into it. And that line, like, you know, souls are no fun anyway. What am I going to do with a soul?
Oh, boys. Tom also says in the scene, "Who has ever looked out for you in this fucking family?" Which I've heard some people say, like, is not accurate, but it 100% is. Yes, Kendall gave Greg an apartment, but it's fucking temporary. I think he could take that away at any point. And he proved in season 3 that he doesn't actually care that much about Greg and was going to burn him.
Yeah, and like Tom, aside from his initial ploy to have Greg be like the sacrificial lamb for cruises and get him involved, ever since then has been pretty loyal to him and hasn't like taken opportunities to screw him over when he easily could have. Like in the Boar on the Floor scene, he knew it was Greg and he didn't say anything. Tom's been pretty loyal to Greg.
He has. And I mean, even before Greg kind of turned on Kendall was already going back on some of the things that he had said, like about the papers and having to give some information about Greg.
The other thing about that line is that I think his just like disdain for the Roy family really shone through there, which on rewatch is like, oh yeah, he's like, fuck Shiv, fuck Kendall. Like,
yeah, he's done.
He is done. Like he is ready to just like stab them in the back, and I'm happy for him, honestly. As much as I love the Roy siblings, I also love Tom, and this is just such a great plot decision that I am thrilled about it.
It's possible to do both. He's like, it's just me and this Canadian now. Fuck those East Coast elites.
Woohoo! The Minnesota Canadian solidarity. The dream team. Let's do Candy Baby.
Ugh. Hot. Ugh.
So I had an answer prepared, but because you cheated earlier, I'm going to go with a different answer.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so my new answer for Candy Baby this week is Jesse Armstrong.
That's a great answer. I don't even think that's cheating.
I wanted to cheat.
Okay, we'll try harder. But tell me more about Jesse Armstrong.
Okay. So no one has been talking about Jesse Armstrong this season. He's been doing the after show for almost every episode, and he looks fantastic. Like, he is not a person who really answers a lot of questions in interviews, but he showed up looking fantastic to these interviews. The suit he's been wearing has been great. It matches his glasses, which I think is like a fantastic thing that you can do when you're a person who wears glasses.
I love that. And if like by any weird turn of the universe, if he ever heard this, I would be so happy, because I also just want to throw my hat in the ring and say, Jesse, you are an attractive man with a great brain.
Jesse, if you're listening, we would love to interview you. We promise we won't be weird when we actually interview you.
We would be so normal.
We would be the most
you
normal.
You won't believe how normal we can be. So my candy baby is Roman. He was my first candy baby of the season, so I'm bringing it full circle. What a great season for him. In this episode, I loved his pink shirt. He's always dressed in just very tight clothes, and that was really shown off here, his like tight pants and his tight shirt. And he had on great sunglasses, and I kind of mentioned to you, Savannah, that I liked those sunglasses, and you had previously looked up the ones that Kendall wore in, was it season 2?
Yeah, This Is Not for Tears.
Yeah, so you found those like sunglasses and were like contemplating purchasing them.
Yes, and what ultimately held me back is that I could not find like a genuine way to purchase them. It was just like sketchy sites that had them at that point.
Oh, okay, I see. So then you sent me a link to where you could buy the same sunglasses Roman was wearing, and they are $600, and I had like a serious moment of being like, I should buy those.
You saved a link, you still might buy them.
I don't think I'm going to buy them because like you would never be able to tell anyone how much they cost or why you bought them. It would just be too humiliating to be like, yes, I spent $600 buying Roman Roy's sunglasses from Succession because I'm just like him but a girl. But I thought about it.
But it'd be amazing.
I'm still kind of thinking about it. Okay, so the ending of the episode is this confrontation between the Roy children and their father. Logan, his move is basically to like promise his children something, groom them for it for their entire lives, and then be like, oh, you actually wanted that? Losers.
Kind of embarrassing for you.
Oh, God.
And this is a scene that has happened before for both Kendall and Shiv. Like, Roman's not being promised Theo exactly, but he is being promised something by Logan, and Roman is the only one who's not alone for a moment like this. In the after show, Jesse discussed why Roman is able to do this now when, like, in the vote, Roman couldn't stand up to his dad is all. And he said, I would say the circumstances around Roman have changed, which I think is 100% true. Like, you can't stand up to Logan on your own. We've seen that time and time again. But bolstered by some other slaves.
It makes sense that this is the chance when he's like strong enough to do it, but it's still so like visibly hard for him. And I think that's the thing that I love the most about this show, is that it really like understands the weight of these relationships. And you could imagine a version of the show that's not as good, where they're able to go against their dad and like maybe they still lose, but it doesn't emotionally crush them and it's not this hard for them. They're just like, yeah, we're going to take him down with our votes. And then they're like, we're going to take you down with our votes. And he's like, aha, I have a card up my sleeve. And they're like, oh, darn. Like, you could do that in a way that would not have the emotional impact of these, relationships that they've had their whole lives. And it feels really real.
You can see the impact of all the abuse that he's put them through, and even the differences. Like, you see at one point in the scene, Roman kind of step back a little bit
when he starts yelling.
And Logan starts yelling.
Shiv
is the only one who yells back, and Shiv, I think, probably has not been physically abused by Logan. That is my personal theory.
And I don't even think he's like yelled at her as much as he has his sons.
Yeah, I think Logan could not forgive himself and wouldn't think to do it, even if that makes sense, because it's like he expects things from the boys, so he can do this to them.
I think at this point, most people kind of understand that this show is like about abuse and trauma. Like, if you haven't, I don't know, just probably pay attention to the show more if you haven't picked up on that. But
the next finale, they'll say this is about abuse and trauma, like how they said this is about love in this season.
Yes, this is about love now. And there's this great article by Emily Vanderwerf. Her kind of argument is that each of the Roy kids sort of exhibit a different like response to abuse, and the 4 sort of types are fight, fight back, flight, to run away, freeze, that makes sense, and fawn, which I think is the most interesting one. And you can kind of assign each of those to one of the kids, but I think they all exhibit signs of all of them. Roman is a fawner. He tends to just try to get in his dad's good graces and compliment him and fawn over him to try to avoid becoming like the subject of more abuse. And I think of that scene in the 5th episode of the season, the shareholder vote scene, when after he yells at Shiv, he goes up to Logan and says like, Shiv's being a bitch, huh? It's like classic fawn behavior, I think.
I think it's a very realistic depiction.
Obviously, Logan has been awful for 3 whole seasons. We've seen him do a lot of awful things, but Logan like mocking Shiv like that was really affecting. It really felt like a different kind of cruelty from him that really revealed like how little he respects his kids, and Shiv especially.
Yeah, I think this is like the most honest we've seen his like deep down feelings about the kids. And the fact that he did this, even though he had a trump card, I think it reflects really poorly on him. Like, it shows how emotional he is, that even though he's winning here, he still gets so upset by them trying to barge in here and say, no, we're gonna take you down. Like, you should just be like, haha, you lost, goodbye.
I know, that's what, like, the cool version of Logan would do, who I think a lot of people think that he is, and I'm like,
He doesn't know what dick pics are.
The, like, cool version of Logan would be like, aha, I already made this move first. That'd be the first thing he said, instead of making this so like emotional and intense. You can understand how he feels, which I think is what's always good about the show. But I mean, he really did just turn on a dime there, and he had never really considered selling the company. Like, it's a huge move to make without involving the people that he's always wanted to take over the company.
Yeah, suddenly he's only talking to like Frank and Jerry, who he said, you know, he doesn't respect, he doesn't want them to be in power, it's not going to be Jerry. But he just completely shut the kids out of any information about what was going on. It is also very on brand that they had this like really kind of traumatic family conversation in front of all of his employees. Like, you don't even see shots of them really, it's just, of course they're there. They're never completely alone as Roys.
That was rough for them to see all of that, and you just wonder how much they've seen over the years. And then the big reveal is that Caroline has already been contacted and has agreed to reopen or kind of change the divorce agreement so that the supermajority rule is void. It does seem like, you know, Peter might have also played a little bit of a role in that. Peter really likes Logan. He really likes Logan. He really wants more, like, power with Logan. So Caroline might have been like, oh, I don't know. And then he was like, do it. Like, and she's like, okay. So that's probably how that went down. And she tries to say, like, I don't think this is good for you, which is like, I think it's true, but also, like, what a terrible way to, like, do this. You're not helping.
Do you think this is good for them to do it like this? You're just being selfish and trying to justify it. I read that they considered having Caroline actually in the room for this scene, and I think this was absolutely the right choice. Like, it's so Caroline that even when she is slitting their throats, she is physically absent from the room.
Yes, exactly. What I also liked about this was now it actually is, like, pivotal to the plot that it was Caroline's wedding. I think the assumption all along was it's just kind of an excuse to get everyone together. But I love that now it's like, oh, of course it was Caroline. That's great. Love that.
Of course it was Caroline.
Yeah, so Roman tries pleading with his dad. When that fails, he tries pleading with Jerry, the other person who he thinks loves him. This was pretty cold of her. I quite liked the reference to their earlier conversations when she just said, how does it serve my interests? How indeed.
Yes. I love this moment for Jerry. Jerry is not like a girl boss feminist fighting the patriarchy by working at Waystar all these years. She's a person who has survived at the company this long because she is willing to sacrifice other people to, you know, keep herself secure.
And then the Tom reveal.
Tom.
I think I just yelled Tom as soon as he showed up. That was such a great moment and such a great way of doing it. And it's really interesting that they were unsure of how this scene would play out, if it would be that Kendall maybe noticed that Tom was there, or even that none of them noticed and only like the audience knew. But I thought Shiv, being the one to catch on to it was perfect. Just like a very chilling scene at the end.
I understand why they considered Kendall, and I think this would have been a great callback to their earlier conversation in what it takes for Kendall to be alone and have this kind of moment with him. But I think in order for Tom and Shiv's relationship to really progress moving forward, it had to be Shiv. Mark Mylod, the director, asked Brian in the scene, can you put as much warmth into that as you possibly can?
When he puts his hand on Tom's shoulder, yeah.
Yes, and I think he definitely did that. It was just such a great moment that, I mean, I was thinking back to, like, every moment we've had with Tom realizing Shiv has betrayed him. Like, there's the moment in Sad Sack Boss Trap, which isn't actually her betraying him, but works pretty well. And also when he's, like, watching Shiv and Nate together.
Yes.
Like, he has had so many moments like this, and always just goes back to being warm with her, acting like nothing happened, and this time we saw the reverse.
This, like, such a satisfying ending, and it really, like, puts a lot of other scenes, like, into perspective, because I think what they do really well about Twist is it's not like Tom has been planning this all season long. That's impossible because the holding move thing just very suddenly happened. Yet, it really, like, plays upon the things that we've seen, happen all season, where Tom and Logan had this sort of weird bonding in the UTI scene. Tom and Kendall had a conversation. Like, for that all to kind of build up to this, I think just is really beautiful, and it works so well.
Yes, it's the kind of twist that, like, I don't think anyone really saw coming, but you can see it now. Tom and Logan's relationship got built up so well, and the whole thing with the lawyer came back in a really great way. It's the lawyer that Tom talked to, and everyone's like, oh, they just dropped it. They did not.
That's interesting to me. So the name is like Rex something with an H is the last name. Henneman, something like that. And that is the guy that Tom asked for in episode 3, I think. Maybe 3 or 4. I don't know. Early in the season, when after he, like, offered himself up as like the sacrifice, he went and made that mysterious phone call to a lawyer, and then that is the guy that the same lawyer that is apparently working on, like, the Caroline and Logan, like, divorce thing.
But you had your theory about how he was actually calling about a divorce to Shiv, and now it seems...
I think that is the case because, like I said, it's impossible that he was planning on this exact outcome. That makes no sense. But we know it's someone that works on divorce law, and maybe Tom even was like, hey, I already have a contact who could help you with this, I think. So, whether or not he's going to try to divorce Shiv, I think that is probably the intention, or, like, the implication here is that he was feeling out those options. I'm glad they went with the ending where Shiv realizes that it was Tom. I think that's so perfect. She realizes it was Tom, but Tom doesn't realize that she knows, I think, in this moment. So it's this, he's trying to act normal with her, as you said, as Shiv has always done to him after these betrayals, kind of gaslighting him, and now he's gaslighting her back. Woo!
A couple goals.
I love the way he walks and goes, hey, Shiv, and that, like, weird little, like, Muppety voice of his. Oh, it's just amazing television.
He's not used to betrayals. This is not a natural role for him.
Yeah. And then he, like, tries to comfort her, and it's just so... It's so good, because I think, like, she has to realize that she did this to herself, and...
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing about these kids trying to defeat Logan, is they always lose because of something that they do to themselves. It's never really Logan just, like, outsmarting them. It's either, okay, Kendall's, like, an addict and he got into a crash and kind of, like, ruined things, and then, Logan took advantage of that. In this case, it's Shiv was treating her husband terribly all season long, thought that it would have no consequences, and then he sold her out.
That's what you get. I loved this last shot, especially, we talked before about how people have kind of built up Succession to be a lot more exciting of a show than it is. And I do find it very exciting, but, like, for different reasons. It's because it ended on this, like, quieter moment that just had so much weight. This is a show about people who don't really talk to each other about anything. And we made a lot of inroads in this episode with Kendall, Shiv, and Roman, but at its core, that is still who these people are, and that's what she defaults to in that moment. And that is just so crushing of an ending.
I was so excited by this ending. Like, I think my idea of what's like thrilling is just very skewed, because my reaction when the screen went like dark, like credits, I was like, no, threw my laptop onto my bed, and I was totally alone, by the way, stood up and like started just like cackling out loud. Like, I was just like, that was fucking amazing. And then my parents called me as soon as they finished watching the episode, like last night, and they were just like, what? So I'm like, okay, we're different people, I guess. But I got so excited about it. And then I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning because I couldn't sleep, because I just kept thinking about how good the episode was. I think if Succession was any more exciting, it might actually kill me. So I'm glad that they kind of play it slow sometimes.
The music we got.
Oh, the music!
In the credit sequence
Nicholas
was just
Britell. You are a superstar.
Just soundtrack.
Like the choral music in the end credits there was such a great choice, because they've never really done like choral music like that before, so kind of like matching like the Italy vibe. We had a lot of like, it looked like a monastery, sort of this like weird place they were at, and it was just so dramatic and was so good.
And the Roys, along with Tom, are Catholic, and
yes,
it's very Catholic to not talk about things.
Well, perhaps we can end with looking forward a little bit to the next season, and we'll use buy or sell to do that.
Sell seems cool.
I didn't really do all my homework, and I didn't really pick exact answers. I might just like review like who I have and who I don't have in the bank. So I sold Jerry, which maybe was a bad move. I was just like a little bit vindictive, but she's gonna be fine. Logan wants to keep her around, so she has stayed. Bought Kendall, I bought Logan, I bought Roman, so I'm sort of on both sides of this war. I also bought Tom very early on in episode 3, and that was my best payoff, really, because I bought Tom so early on, so I am making a lot of return on my investment there. I sold Shiv. I basically bought back so many people that I sold. I sold Shiv, Greg, and Connor. I feel like I want to buy Shiv back just because I like her and I want her to be on my side, even though this is like objectively a terrible ending for her, like power-wise. Just for sentimental reasons, perhaps I will purchase Shiv back, because I have like the rest of the siblings, the rest of the core 3 siblings, Connor, on my side. So yeah, maybe I'll buy Shiv back purely for sentimental reasons, and sell. Who do I sell?
Logan. Sell Logan.
Should I sell Logan just again for sentimental reasons? Like, this is why I can never be an actual business person. I'd be like, aw, I'm gonna buy the person who is at the bottom of the power ranking and sell. But that might be smart. Aren't you supposed to sell low, sell high? No, wait. Sell.
You're supposed to
high, buy low.
Well, low when you expect it to go up in value.
Yeah. I will sell Logan because, like, where is he going from here? You're gonna have a kid? You're insane. Okay, I'm selling Logan. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Cool. You got to work that through because I didn't do my homework. So
you didn't do your homework. Sorry. And you also cheated this week. You've been a very bad student.
It's the last one. I'm slacking.
You're slacking. I did my homework.
Okay, well, look at you.
For my buy and sell, I tried to focus on who I felt most confident in, like, kind of the aptitude they had shown this season and where I might see them going next season. So try to choose what I feel are relatively safe bets for a show that has a lot of twists and turns. So I am once and for all selling Greg.
Nice.
Ewan told him a few episodes ago, you need to take yourself seriously, kid. And Greg is still not doing that. He's trying to get in on the dormant throne of Italy. The only success that he's had is because people like Tom and Kendall keep going, hey, I think I could use you, so let me give you like a little slice of power. He's not putting any effort in on his own, and I think he's in for a rude awakening. And for my buy, this is not super surprising, but I am buying Tom.
Nice.
This was a great Tom season. I hate when people talk about the show like it's Game of Thrones, but I am going to talk about the show like it's Game of Thrones for a second because Tom won this season. If you could say anyone won, it's Tom.
I agree.
We saw him at his most pathetic with the prison vlogs, but he ended the season doing the coolest thing anyone in the show has ever done. Sorry, Kendall. A criticism I have heard of Succession is that it's unrealistic for the company to have remained in family hands for this long. And I think maybe they're right, and that it's white men like Tom who are outside the royal family who are going to be able to sweep in and maintain power moving forward.
Put Tom in charge. Tom CEO
Yeah.
arc. This is an ending that I feel like I can live with for a while. You know, like I feel like it was a very satisfying end of the season. I don't even know how to begin to speculate on it, so I think it'll be really interesting to see what ends up, you know, happening in a year and a half when we get to see the next season.
This finale made me feel kind of warm. Like, that feels weird to say,
Yeah.
but I just feel very warm thinking about it and the place that the siblings got to, even though there's still a huge amount of, like, suspense.
I agree. Like, I just like where this one took the character arcs. I'm glad the siblings have teamed up. I know they're probably going to be at each other's throats pretty soon again, but for now, I can live with the image of the three of them together, and Tom is like that bitch. He really did that, and I love that for him too. So yeah, I'm just like very happy with where all these characters are right now, and excited to see where it goes, but also not feeling like I can't wait for it. Like, I'm not like, oh, I need more right now.
No.
Which is a good place to be at, because we can't get more right now, so we have to live with this for a while.
They need to rest, and I don't know, I'm excited to have time to, like, process each episode fully. That feels like a funny thing to say when we've been, like, talking about this for hours each week and rewatching each episode, like, 4 times, but it's a different kind of processing when you've seen the whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
You have more time between episodes.
So I did rewatch the season before this episode, and that already, like, kind of gelled it in my mind, where I could kind of see the bigger picture of the season. But I think after this finale, I just feel like I have to do that again, because now it'll really, you know, start to be clear where it was going and where it was always going, and those threads that people were like, oh, they're just dropping this, or that's not going anywhere, or why are they doing this? I think now it's like we have answers for all of that, really, which I think is really impressive.
It's really exciting.
Congratulations to everyone who worked on this show. Good work, guys.
Yeah, you guys did a good job. You guys who are clearly listening to this podcast in your free time.
You know, just the general kind of congratulations.
And to all of you who, like, there's a lot of criticism early on in the season, but everyone who's, like, still here watching and enjoying the show, good
Yeah.
taste.
Yeah,
Good
we
for us.
won. The real
won.
winners are people who watch Succession.
No one on Succession wins. It's people who watch Succession
People
who win.
who watch Succession are the real winners. And thank you to those who listen to our little podcast. This was pretty fun to do, and thank you, Savannah, for doing this with me. We both know some people that have been listening as well, so thank you to my mom for listening. My mom, who I never swear in front of, so now I'm like, sorry.
Oh, I'm the same.
Sorry, Mom.
Oh, for doing that, thank you to my mom and my sister for also listening. And thank you to Jenny for asking me to be on this show.
Of course.
I enjoyed listening to your video essays and earlier podcasts, so it was just an honor to be asked to be a part of this and get to talk to you about it each week like this.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you to everyone who listened. I hope you have a happy holiday, even though Succession is over.
And maybe you'll get some kind of Succession-themed gifts from your friends and loved ones. That could mend the soul for a bit. Like Roman sunglasses. Buy them for me.
The actual point of this entire episode was to convince Jenny's mom to buy her the sunglasses.
No, don't buy me $600 sunglasses. That's absurd. All right. Well, I have to edit this, and bye. We won't see you. We can't even say we'll see you because, you know, who knows? Not in like a dark way, just like, you know, who knows? Oh, I never really shouted out Kendall for his bald head either, which
You didn't.
and I promised that, so I don't know.
Good card.
Runner-up is Kendall. I'm sorry that your brother, like, usurped your throne. I was really sure that I was going to be feeling Kendall a little bit more,
This
but
is so typical for Kendall.
I know, I'm sorry.
Maybe it's because you're not actually an eldest sibling that you have turned on Kendall in this way. Because I shouted out Kendall's shaved head.
I mean, I shouted it out.
I picked him last episode.
I know.
You haven't
I
picked
picked
him
his
at all.
mom and his brother instead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kendall. I
Such a
love
younger sibling move.
I love the haircut. Would love to slap your bald head. I hope he keeps it. I hope he keeps it,
I'm-
or
It grows back gray.
yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yes.
Or it grows back gray. That
He
would
can't go back to the ink jet.
no. I think that
hair.
this is the perfect way to kind of like phase out like dyeing his hair.
I think it'd be good for his like character transformation
Yeah,
and sexy.
it would. Yeah, so a win and a win.